All right. Hello, the people who might be listening or might not be listening. Uh, this is kind of a new thing for me. It's a bit weird. I'm just by myself. My name is Rebel. If maybe you don't know about me, you probably don't because oops, sorry, just cracked open a can. I kind of had this idea that I wanted to do a podcast again. I'd done a podcast in the past called the TPD podcast. And it was one of those things where I just it was me and a friend and we talked and we had a good time. And I actually really enjoyed that kind of process. I enjoyed having a podcast and kind of having, set topics that we needed to talk about or things that we were interested in. And it became a little bit successful, in comparison to some of my other endeavors. And so I wanted to give it a shot again and just see if I could do it by myself. I'm in kind of a weird situation where my schedule is very different from my friends that I probably would have done this with prior, especially the friend that I had done the last podcast I have done with. He, has a very different schedule than mine, and it just makes it kind of impossible to do with, or impossible to kind of find a good time to do it with him. So here I am by myself. I kind of hope that if I can stick to this and, just have a good time with it and not really focus on numbers and shorts and all of these things. And I think that kind of, for me, got in the way of the last one where I was so concerned with, how many people are watching and what are the clip views and why isn't our main, video podcast getting views and why isn't, you go down the laundry list of like stresses that you apply to yourself for fucking no reason at all. And so I wanted to try this and just kind of have, I don't know, just a dialogue with myself? I don't know, that sounds really weird, but... Oh, sorry, there are children outside speaking. Anyway. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to try this out. I don't know how successful this will be. I don't know if I'll stick to it. I've been kind of dabbling in getting back into streaming again. Not really the full, YouTube deal where I'm recording and uploading and all that stuff, but just having some fun streams. Now that you can stream on YouTube and Twitch, I kind of thought that would be a good opener for me to give it a shot again. And it's been going relatively well. I mean, the viewership isn't crazy, but I also am so inconsistent that I can't really blame anybody for it. And I tend to have this pattern, I guess, to start streaming or start doing content again right before something really big or something that will essentially take up all of my time, if not most of my time. And I'm kind of doing it again because I have finals next week. And I'm assuming most people, if you're in university or I don't know about like high school and grade school, I guess it depends on where you are. But you're probably also having finals, so I hope that, your finals have went well or they will go well. I don't know when you'll have them, but anyway, yeah, I'm basically choosing to start another podcast a week before my finals, which is really dumb, but I'm doing it because I'm a bit impulsive when it comes to, I guess, content creation or kind of creativity in general. I tend to have an idea and I just want to do it now. I don't want to wait. I just want to do it right now. And I don't know if that's, I don't know. I'm sure there are plenty of other people like that, but I guess I'm a bit impatient when it comes to ideas and trying to act on the ideas, I guess. But anyway, big circle back. I've been trying to get back into making content again because I really enjoy doing it. I don't know how to explain why I enjoy doing it. I've been asked the question a lot throughout my life because I've kind of been around a while. At least making content for probably, I would say consistently, I did it for 3 to 4 years, maybe 5. I kind of was flip floppy on being a streamer and then also just a YouTuber, depending on kind of what I had felt at the time. But I mean, I've been on and off making content for probably 8 to 9 years, which is kind of a long time in terms of the internet, or just in general. It's been a big part of my life, and it kind of got me out of some rough situations and kind of gave me purpose, I guess. And I think it started off with really good intentions, which was just, I like playing video games and I want to share it. And I don't know how to, I don't know how to explain why I wanted to do that. I just knew that I wanted to. And, I think YouTube for me and, gaming really was the highlight for me, growing up. And having those videos that I was able to watch every day, or even once a week or whenever I had the time, really helped me get through a lot of really terrible things. And I guess a part of me thought, well, maybe I can be that for somebody. And I think that I've been successful in that. I'm not the biggest YouTuber in the world. I'm not even a YouTuber in comparison to other people, but I think I've been successful in that. I hope in some way I've been able to brighten a day along the way. And I know that sounds pretty cheesy and maybe melodramatic, but sorry, just taking a sip of my tea. Maybe a bit melodramatic, but I think that I've done that. I think that I did that, and I'm happy that I did that. You know what I mean? And I think I kind of lost that towards maybe the end. I remember specifically, when was it? Probably 2016, 2017 maybe, where Adpocalypse hit, and, I wasn't earning anything from videos, and, YouTube partnership got a lot more stringent, and there weren't any MCNs, and, essentially you just lost all your income from that, which, granted, it wasn't a huge amount at the time, but I was smart in how I scheduled my videos and working with certain things, and it worked out for me. Again, I'm not saying I made $30 million, but it was enough for me to keep it going, It was enough for me to keep buying games, to keep playing on YouTube, and that was perfect for me. And then I kind of switched to streaming because, I thought, well, I can't earn anything on YouTube. There's literally no way for me to earn anything on YouTube. There still isn't, really. And I guess I thought that I could, move to streaming, and that would at least be a bigger opportunity for me. And that also worked out. I actually got some streamer clout at the start and did well. But I have this terrible habit of, building these things up, and then I just tear it down by just kind of disappearing. And I really don't want to do that again. And I kind of am already doing it. I guess I'm making content in some form by doing this, but I feel like I don't want to do that again, because I feel like there's this terrible feeling that I have that I'm going to look back in my life and go, man, if you just would have kept at it, that if you would have just been consistent for just a fucking, like 6 months, maybe you could have done something with this that would have been bigger than you thought. And that kind of weighs on me. So I'm going to hope that I can at least keep some level of consistency. And, even with this, I don't know if it's going to be a weekly thing, if it's going to be a daily thing. I know there's some podcasts that do, 20 minutes on a Monday 20 minutes like every day. And that's enough to manage. And they have, like full-time families and such. So I don't even know what direction I want to go with this. I just know that I wanted to do it. So very chaotic and not planned at all. I don't even know how long this episode will be by the end, but I guess whenever I stop yapping will just be when I stop. But yeah, I guess, being around a long time, and since I didn't really touch on what I meant earlier, sorry, I'm being a bit confusing. Basically, at the beginning of YouTube, I had very good intentions, and I think over time they slowly drifted away into how can I get the most amount of viewership, or how can I boost my visibility, and how can I, it got really, really, really toxic later on, and I think that's why I stopped for a long time. I think, I would upload a video, let's say, and work hard on it and try to edit it funny and all this stuff. And I'd upload it and it wouldn't do well. And, there's kind of nothing you can do. It's one of those things where it's like you just upload it and hope that it works or that somebody sees it. And I think for a long time, I just it was like a video after video after video of just getting nothing. And compared to even previous channels and stuff, I never had viewership that low. And this is probably just due to more people being on YouTube and, discoverability dropping for most people. But it really affected me in a way that I think I didn't want to do it anymore, because it just made me, I don't know, overly competitive maybe, or just in my head about it. You kind of go like, I just played a game for 3 hours and I'm editing it together and no one's going to watch it. I think that really got to me and it really affected me. So I kind of just stopped. And I think that might have been one of the biggest mistakes, because when I look back on that time, I still liked making the videos, and I wasn't getting as bad of numbers as I thought. I think I was just used to the numbers, and granted, I wasn't gaining a lot of subs. That was always something I struggled with, because I didn't really like the idea of asking for subs. I know that that's kind of the foundation of YouTube, like at least in the intros. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Here goes the video, that kind of thing. But I always took this stance that, if someone wanted to sub, they would just sub, because I don't feel like when I see that in videos, I subscribe. And so I took that stance, but I think that was kind of a mistake on my part, because a lot of people it's not even about you asking for it. And I know people do this now where they'll put like the animated subscription thing on the video and they don't even have to say it. It's just a visual kind of cue to make you think about it. And I think that I was stupid for thinking that I even had to ask for the sub. I could have just done something more, not sly, because it sounds like I'm trying to, more low key, and less kind of in your face. I could have just been like, hey, we're trying to reach this sub goal, or hey, we're, trying to do XYZ. It didn't need to be this whole thing of asking, it could have been more subtle. That's the word I'm thinking of, subtle. And so I never really had a huge amount of sub growth, which, again, was kind of my mistake. But views, I never really had a huge issue with. I was always able to figure out how to get higher views and what to do within my means. Like I don't have the ability to make a video that costs $10,000, and I don't. It's a lot of investment for something that's not going to pay me back. But I guess sorry, I'm getting lost on a tangent. I'm not used to this. I apologize. I hope I get better at this over time. But basically, I'm trying to get back into YouTube is the long-winded answer to this thing. And I still don't actually know if I want to post this to my main channel. It would feel dumb to not post it to the main channel, but I'm also worried that, YouTube, actually, I kind of want to talk about this a little bit. YouTube kind of punishes you for having diverse content. And I understand the method behind it. I understand that, like, hey, you should stick to one subject. That way you can boost your visibility by X amount. I completely get that. The problem that I have with that is YouTube is, I'm going to sound so fucking artsy, but YouTube is supposed to be this kind of creative space for people. And I feel like it has become more of a streamlined, almost television syndication type of content platform, where, you know, if you make gaming content, you should just stick to making gaming content, because you're going to upload another, like, you know, let's say an average YouTuber, let's say 100,000 subs, right, decides one day that he's going to upload a short film that he made, or you know, upload music, or maybe he wants to do a like, you know, with me, like, do a podcast or do something else. I feel like YouTube now punishes you for being more creative on their platform, because on paper, you shouldn't be posting other kinds of content on a main channel. You should make a second channel. It's kind of like back in the day. I don't know if anybody listening, if there is anyone listening, but if anybody remembers those YouTubers that always had a second channel, you know, they would always have like an example, I think it was like Nadeshot and then Nadeshot Plays. And like Nadeshot Plays would be the story mode games or vlogs or whatever, or even the Nadeshot channel would be the main vlog channel, or whatever. You always split your content into two different places so people knew where to go. But I don't think it was about people knowing where to go. I think it was about YouTube only showing, you know, only helping your content if it's based on your niche or your topic. So if your channel is mostly gaming content, it seems like, at least from what I can tell now with my own channel, is that they kind of boost videos that are supposed to be on your channel. And if you try to do anything different, they kind of go, well, you're a gaming channel, you know? And that's something I don't really like about this current, I guess, trend of kind of making things more, you know, it's like YouTube channels are now like TV channels where you kind of know what's going to be on and you know what you're going to get. And I don't think that is at least the YouTube that I like. And that may sound, you know, a bit old, I guess, or stuck in my ways. But I just feel like this platform's supposed to be this creative output with little barrier, right, between creator and consumption. It's supposed to be this place where, you know, you can go on your phone and record something and upload it. And theoretically, your visibility should be the same as somebody else's visibility, but it's just not. It's just not. And that bothers me a little bit. Not because I think, you know, it fucks me over, or, you know, this isn't like a sob story of I'm making different kinds of content, I'm not being recommended. I'm at a point in my life where it's kind of just, this is just kind of a creative thing for me that I do. But I think it makes me a bit mad because some people are not genreable, if that makes sense. I think it applies to music too, where, you know, if your favorite rapper decides to make a jazz album or a different kind of album, no one's gonna listen to that. No one's even gonna give it a try unless they're absolute diehard fans, you know? And I guess I just don't like that idea of applying that to content creation, where we go, you know, oh, well, Jimmy Kimmel has X amount of subs and he brings us a lot of ad content, so we gotta change things on our platform to cater to these bigger fish. And it feels like YouTube kind of lost sight of who the actual people who were keeping their site alive was. Like, they forgot what that group of people, or who that group of people were. And that's my only like gripe with, I guess, YouTube, and why it makes it tough to even want to get back into content creation, because it seems like such a giant hill to climb now in comparison to when I was younger or when I was first starting out, where it was kind of like, even people who made custom thumbnails was rare. Like, that was the big big YouTubers had custom thumbnails, but that wasn't something that everybody had to do. You know, a lot of the gaming channels I watched that had plenty of viewership just had the base thumbnail that YouTube gave you for, you know, whatever, like just a spot in your gameplay. It wasn't, you know, an artist or anything like that, which some YouTubers did. I'm not saying that didn't exist, but I'm just saying now it seems like to make a YouTube video, it's a full production. And I think that that's incredible for the people who have been successful with that, but I also think it kind of fucks the little guy over, you know, because if there's a kid out there who wants to do, let's say, phone reviews or tech reviews or whatever, unboxings, you know, you're not going to stand out really. And I know that personality is really important, and maybe you're lucky enough to where people will gravitate towards your personality, but it's hard for me to imagine you're going to have your personality perfect if you're starting out. And I guess my main point is like that barrier to even get noticed now is just so large that it's kind of impossible, you know? And it feels like you have to do so much more to get any leeway. And, you know, for that kid who's kind of, I don't know, watching Linus Tech Tips, and he's like, man, I kind of want to do something like this, you know, let me record building my computer. If he doesn't have a production team and perfect lighting and editors and, you know, scheduled videos and a thumbnail artist and a SEO manager and, you know, all of these things, his video's not going to perform anywhere near close to even base level, you know? Like, you're very lucky if you get visibility on something like that now, just because YouTube has become so, I guess, mainstream and saturated. So I don't know. I don't know how I got there, but I guess that's kind of my gripe with YouTube right now, is that it just kind of feels like it has become so just congested, and the barrier between content creator and consumption has been so high. And there are some YouTubers that pull it off and don't go too crazy. You know, I know Syndicate does vlogs now, and he has an editor, but he still films on his iPhone, you know, and he's still, it's not like his editor does crazy stuff. It's just usually cuts. And, you know, the thumbnails, I think he has someone who does his thumbnails, but they're not, you know, insane. So there are still some people that pulled it off and are pulling it off successfully. But I just think that barrier grew, and that makes it really difficult for me personally to go, yeah, I'll start just doing content again, you know? And I'm very flip-floppy about it, because there are times where I'm like, yeah, let's just upload. Like, who cares about the views? I like doing it, and let's just have fun with it. And, you know, I'll just stream for a few hours, and it'll be a good time, and whatever. But there are also parts of me that are, like, really deterred from uploading a video and it getting 0 views, you know? That's something that does affect you, even if you really try to ensure that it doesn't. And I don't know. I think that's just important. And yeah, I don't know. It's just tough. It's tough. But anyways, in other news, I don't really remember how I got my other podcasts up on, like, services. So I'll have to think about that. Maybe this can be just a test one that goes on YouTube, and I'll see how consistent I can stick with it before I commit to, like, distribution. Because I think the last podcast, I think we had a distribution channel. No, it was a website that distributed, I think it was called Buzzsprout. I think that was the one. I know there are a few other ones. I know there's one by Spotify that some people use, actually. But maybe I'll hold off on that just because, I don't know. I feel like that's a lot for something like this. Anyway, in other news, there are a few movies out. Actually, you know what? I'll talk about something that I want to talk about because it's Christmas time. Now, I like Christmas time. I like the vibe of Christmas. But I don't like Christmas movies. And that is, a controversial take depending on who you're talking to, right? My girlfriend really, really, really likes Christmas movies. So if there's anyone in here who has a girlfriend and knows what this is like, then please share, because I'm stuck watching Christmas movies all the time. Anyway, we watched a Christmas movie called Hot Frosty. And it was on Netflix, and my God, it may be the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. But she liked it. I don't understand these Christmas movies. I'll give you the premise without spoilers. I think you can guess by the title of the fucking movie what it is. But it's basically a snowman who gets brought to life, and he's just super ripped. That's pretty much it. And I found it a little weird because the guy's ripped. I don't think he's very attractive. I'm also a guy, so I don't know. I'm straight, so maybe I'm not the right person to say if he's attractive or not. I don't feel like his face was that great. Anyway, in the movie, they portray the snowman as being like childlike. He has a childlike attitude, and it's really weird that it's a love interest. It felt like, I forget what movie that was. What movie was it when the kid was somehow put into an adult? Does anybody remember what that movie was? I can't remember the name of it, but it felt like it was a child in an adult's body, but the guy was ripped, so we're supposed to just not care. But it felt wrong. The whole movie felt wrong. I felt a bit uncomfortable that this guy was essentially a moron and had childlike innocence to him, but he was ripped, and he's super hot, so like all the girls love him and are trying to take advantage of him kind of because he's hot and stupid. It's just weird. It was such a weird movie. But my point is, how far are we going to go with these Christmas movies? Because I feel like I'm seeing almost a Hallmark Channel type of production from these streaming services towards the holidays now. I started to kind of see it after, I think Adam Sandler made like a Halloween movie. And then I felt like after he made that movie, I started seeing more and more holiday-centric movies out on these streamers. And for Halloween, I guess there's always been horror movies that are kind of slashers and stuff, and that's kind of the Halloween, I guess, production cycle. Like, hey, it's Halloween, let's make our scary movies. But I felt like after the Adam Sandler movie, which from what I recall, I don't think I ever watched it, but it felt more like a movie about Halloween, like a festive movie in a sense. I felt like after I saw that, every time there's a new holiday season, we're just getting movies based on that season, which again, Hallmark has been doing that for fucking decades, and they're really good at it. But I wonder how far we're going to go with, I guess, specifically Christmas time, because Christmas movies are kind of a staple, right? Like, I can't think of people being like, what's another fucking holiday? I guess it's just Christmas. Like Thanksgiving. How about that? I don't feel like there are a lot of people who are like, oh, let's throw on a Thanksgiving movie. I don't feel like that's a very big, movie production industry into making Thanksgiving movies like there are Christmas movies. It feels like Christmas movies are like this vein that they're tapped into in entertainment, where it's like, okay, it's getting to Christmas time, we gotta make some Christmas movies. But I felt like in the past it was more, let's just keep rewatching the old ones. I was fine with that. But now it feels like we're trying to make new ones, and the new ones are god awful. Like you get movies like Hot Frosty. I think there was another one, again by Netflix. It seems like Netflix invested in Christmas time quite a bit this year. I forget what it was called. It was like Christmas Helper, and it was like this ripped dude, and there's always this girl from the city who's busy for some reason. Like, she's just always busy. I remember seeing that. Wow, this brings up a crazy memory. I remember seeing this movie where, and it was a Christmas movie. It had, oh, what was that girl? I think it was the girl from Vampire Diaries. Elena? I can't believe I remember that name. My little sister loved Vampire Diaries for a time. And she was essentially dating a ghost, but it was during Christmas, so it was a Christmassy ghost movie. And so she was banging this ghost who I think was killed during Prohibition. It was such a wild just stretch. Like, what are we doing? And I don't know. It just feels like we're going really far with these Christmas movies. I know, repositioning, that was more difficult than I thought it would be. I know there's a movie called Red One that is also a Christmas movie. I think, is it J.K. Simmons? That's his name. He's Santa or something like that. And it has a huge budget and it's just flopping its tits off. Like, it's just doing absolutely terrible. And I haven't seen that one yet, but I can't imagine it's very good. I think it has Chris Evans in it. No, it has Chris Evans, The Rock, and J.K. Simmons. And I'm sure there's other people that they could afford, because I think the movie costs like $250 million fucking dollars. So that probably is why it had a small theater release and also didn't do well, which I think proves the point of kind of, you know, I guess if we're moving away from the festivity thing or festive movies, I think a lot of studios right now are just going, fuck, like, or I won't even say studios, because that puts it in the traditional sense of like Warner Brothers and, you know, Paramount, which I guess are streaming platforms now too, but, you know, Netflix and Hulu and these companies that are really started on streaming, they seem to just throw money at these things, and they're just like, oh, the money will make it good. But that's just not the case. You know what I mean? I think we're seeing that a lot now, where we've had some big budget movies kind of just flop off the map. Like Red One is a good example. And I think the second Joker movie is also a really good example. I'd argue that got really terrible. Regardless of what you feel about that movie, if you liked it or not, it got the worst press I've ever seen off like a first week release. Not even press, but also just people posting that it was so bad. I think the people are so easily influenceable now that like Twitter was just full of this movie's trash. And then I think a lot of people just didn't go see it because, well, a movie's trash. Why would I spend, you know, fuck, it's probably like $20 for a movie ticket now. I don't know how much it is exactly, but it's getting up there. So I feel like studios are finally seeing like, ah, shit, we can't just, you know, if we throw $250 million at this movie, it doesn't mean it's going to be good. So I hope that incentivizes studios to strategically pick their directors and their scripts, maybe more than they have been. Obviously, the Joker's kind of an enigma because same director, same writer, same actor, same everything. It just didn't, you know, land, or maybe the director just didn't give a fuck, or I don't know. I've heard a lot of things. What's another movie? It also applies, I feel like, for Megalopolis. I haven't seen that one either, but it's a well-known director, but it cost so much money and it wasn't good from what I've heard. You know, and that's kind of a different story because it's not funded by a studio, it's funded by Coppola. But, you know, it's like this idea that the Marvel era kind of created, I think, where it was just like, the movie cost $300 million. It should make us, oh my God, it should make us $1 billion. You know, it should make its budget back. It's fine. And I think we're seeing that that's not going to work. But we'll see. I don't really know where the movie industry is going. I think streamers are kind of just changing everything. And, you know, I don't even know how we quantify movie success anymore, because I've seen so many movies that kind of, I guess, flopped in theaters, at least to most people's standards, but then go to streaming and they do great. And then they make another one because they did great on streaming. But like, how do we quantify that as money earned, right? Like, is it that because in my head, it's like if I'm a movie studio and I make a movie and it flops in the theaters, but I sell it to a streaming service, there's no way I'm making enough money from that sale of the rights to the streaming service back, right? Like, surely they're not making hundreds of millions. Obviously, aside from like Friends or Seinfeld or these like syndicated shows, which were already making a shitload of money. It's hard for me to imagine these movies are doing, incredibly that much better, at least in terms of licensing deals. But I could be very wrong. I'm kind of just talking out of my ass. Like, there could be very lucrative deals for movies on the streaming side that I just don't know of. But I guess before I wrap this up, I'll bring up another movie that I thought I feel like general consensus kind of flopped in terms of first week numbers and I guess box office earnings, was the Many Saints of Newark, which was the Sopranos sequel movie. And I remember that coming out, and it was in most theaters. Like, I know it said that it wasn't a wide release, but it was in pretty much most theaters that I could find at the time. And it didn't do well. It did not make its money back. I don't think it even had a very big first week. I thought it was a good movie, but it, in terms of financial success, it wasn't that great. But then it was kind of towards the tail end of COVID-ish, I think. Or maybe just, I think it was towards the tail end, from what I recall. Or it might have been even like the middle of COVID. It must have been towards the tail end, because there's no way they would have put out a theatrical release at that time. Anyway, it was towards the tail end of COVID, so the movies had these deals where they would be in theater for a few weeks and then go straight to streaming for a bit. And that was one of those movies that did terrible in theaters, but then HBO came out and was like, we would love to continue making these Sopranos universe movies because it's doing so well. But I guess what I'm struggling to understand is how they quantify that. Is it just based on viewership, and then they go, well, we had X amount of new subscriptions to watch this movie? Would that, it's tough. Like, how do you, especially streamers that don't have ad services, like Hulu has ads. I think Paramount has ads, or at least their base options do. Netflix has ads, but that's like a lower tier you can select. That's not the base option. So like for ads, I understand, because you can make money off the ads. But in terms of like just viewership, I don't know how the financials kind of bleed out into that. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just super confusing, but I don't know. Because it seems like the streamers don't really want to share viewership numbers, right? They don't actually want to share how successful or unsuccessful something is. Probably to lowball people. And, since the information isn't out there, they don't really have to say anything. They can just be like, this movie did terrible. We're going to give you less of a budget for the next one. Or, I know there was a movie with some comedians and they talked about that, where the studio was like, this movie's doing terrible. We're going to take a certain deposit out because you didn't hit a certain benchmark, whatever. But then they found out later that it was like the most streamed movie of the month. And so I'm sure that's a strategic component to that business model, but I don't know, like how do we convert that into money? You know what I mean? It seems like almost like a broken business model. I'm sure they have a way of working it out or it wouldn't be going on, but I just don't know how they would quantify that. Anyway, that was long-winded. I went on for a little bit longer than I thought. We kind of talked about a few things there. But yeah, I don't know how consistent I'll be with this. I hope relatively, but I have no clue. But if you liked it, let me know. And maybe I'll keep doing it. And if this gets enough viewership, then I will put it on other platforms like Spotify and wherever you listen to podcasts. I know this one's probably not going to be a video version just because I feel like video podcasts where it's just one person is kind of weird. But maybe I'll change that. I don't know. Anywho, I'm going to call it there. And thank you for listening if you listened all the way here. I don't know. I'm gonna end it now.